UFC 300 is sure to be an absolutely wild time, especially now that Dana White has come out and said at the press conference that there are going to be 300K bonuses being given out. Now, how many bonuses is he actually going to give out? He said $1.2 million in bonuses, so that means that there's going to be four like usual. So we would assume that there's going to probably be a fight of the night where each member of the fight of the night is going to get the 300K, and that's half of it. And then there will probably be a knockout of the night and then a performance of the night, and that could be it. Or it could just be going to four knockouts and have no fight of the night. But either way, we should be seeing some absolutely crazy action as if we weren't already going to see that. And let's start it off from the beginning. And let's go through this with some conventional wisdom and some simple picks. We can go through the odds as well. But in the first fight of the night, you're going to have Deiveson Figueiredo against Cody Garbrandt. Now, what are the storylines here? It's going to be Deiveson Figueiredo, the more powerful guy, even though he's coming up from 125 to 135, whereas Garbrandt has fought at 135 his entire career. Now, that's not to say that Garbrandt doesn't have power. He certainly does when he's able to load up against somebody who he's much quicker than, and that's exactly what we saw happen in the Rafael Assunção fight, where Garbrandt just loaded up and he was miles ahead of Assunção in terms of speed and accuracy, and that's where Garbrandt was able to do his best work. Now, if Garbrandt gets into a firefight with someone like Figueiredo, who could probably take a shot very well, especially now that he's moving up to 135. I mean, he was able to take every shot at 125 from everyone except for maybe from Brandon Moreno. But even against Moreno, he was really able to take a shot quite well. And it was in the fights that Moreno won, it was Moreno accumulation. It was Moreno getting Figueiredo on the weight cut. And now Figueiredo's not going to have to tax himself the same way that he taxed himself when he was fighting at 125. So Figueiredo moving up to 135 as the more powerful guy, as the lighter guy moving up, where typically the lighter guy has more speed, although we would expect Garbrandt to still have more speed, but Garbrandt's chin, and also Garbrandt saying that thank you to the UFC PI for the sports therapists, saying that this is not about the physical, it's about the mental. And by the way, physically, Garbrandt looked absolutely horrendous. He looks like he's aging 5 years every single year that goes by. So there's that to worry about on the physical side, but also it's on the mental. This game is 90% mental. All these guys are in amazing physical shape. This is a mental game, and if Garbrandt knows that mental side isn't there, I am very, very much on the side of Figueiredo in this fight. I think Figueiredo is going to get this victory no problem against Garbrandt. Figueiredo coming in at the minus 170 favorite, Garbrandt at plus 130. I think that you're going to have to take the favorite, and you're going to have to take Figueiredo, maybe even by knockout. I don't really see how Garbrandt is going to get this victory considering he can't take the shot, and Figueiredo has had time off. He's really got a lot going for him, and Garbrandt hasn't looked good in his last several fights. Garbrandt hasn't looked good at 125. He hasn't looked good at 135. This is a ready-made fight for Figueiredo here to profit off of a good name and move up in the 135-pound weight class by beating Cody Garbrandt. That's the way we see it happening here at Straight Up Fight Network. In the next one, we'll have, maybe you'll even see Figueiredo pocketing 300K. It's possible. It's possible. If he could get his head out of the dirt, he really has a good opportunity here to get that 300K. The only thing working against him is that he's first fight of the night. But maybe he'll pocket one of those four 300K bonuses. Then you have Bobby Green against Jim Miller. Now, Bobby Green is the underdog coming back at 105. Jim Miller, the favorite, at minus 140. I think Bobby Green is going to go absolutely mental for that 300K bonus. He's the one guy who... Now, Jim Miller is going to go for it too, but Bobby Green is the one guy where if you had to say, well, who is going to completely change the way that they're going about winning this fight? Now that 300K is available, I would say Bobby Green. Bobby Green really wants that 300K bad, so much so that I'm going to take him to win this fight against Jim Miller. I think Bobby Green is going to leave nothing. He's going to just go absolutely AWOL, and I don't know if that's going to make it any worse of a prospect of him. I don't think that him going for it harder is going to make it less likely that he wins. I don't think it's going to make him be reckless in a way where now Jim Miller has a better chance. I think that Bobby Green going for the absolute kill from the start is only going to help him because he usually is someone who will sit back and try to play the slick game, and against the wrong guy, that can get him into trouble like it did against the stronger, more powerful fighter, Jalen Turner, who's fighting in two fights later on the card. I think Bobby Green's going to get this because he's going to want it just that much for that 300K. I think Bobby Green's going to look to do something insane, and ultimately in a fight that sort of is a pick'em, That's enough for me to go with Bobby Green here. In the fight after that, you have Jessica Andrade against Marina Rodriguez. Who really cares about the women fights on this card? This is just who really, like Jessica Andrade. She's lost so many fights. How far can she go up the ladder? There's no real championship chance at the end. So what? Are we just her against Rodriguez? Who really cares? I guess Marina Rodriguez at minus 165. That's probably about right. Jalen Turner versus Renato Moicano. Money Moicano is a well-rounded guy, but Jalen Turner is kind of a little bit of the better fighter, and he's the bigger fighter. How is Moicano going to win this fight? What is his path to victory? What is his path to victory against Jalen Turner? I am not really sure. Let's see who Jalen Turner has fought against in his last 5 and see if there's anybody there who inspires a little bit of confidence coming in on the Renato Moicano side. Jalen Turner beat Bobby Green. He lost a split decision to Dan Hooker. Okay. He lost to Gamrot by split decision also. So all of his, and then he beat Brad Riddell, Jamie Malarkey, Euros Medic, Brock Weaver, Koulibaly before losing a unanimous decision to Frivola. He also lost to Vicente Luque going a while back. We'll have to see the best version of Renato Moicano to get the victory. That's for sure. But what I see happening, I see the best version of Green coming out. I'm sorry, not Bobby Green. I see the best version of Turner coming out and maybe getting this victory against Renato Moicano. I mean, this is a close one. This is a really close one. But I feel like you got to take Jalen Turner coming off of the big knockout of Bobby Green, the vicious knockout of Bobby Green. Whereas Moicano, he's going to go for it. He's not going to quit, but oh, man, I know Moicano wants money and he wants that bonus, but Jalen Turner, I feel like he can stall out the decision and just take the win and not go for the $300K. I think that might be the way that this fight goes, is 2 rounds to 1, Jalen Turner getting the victory as the favorite in this matchup. Sadiq Youssef versus Diego Lopez, that's one that I'm just going to skip. Like, who really knows what's going to happen there? Holly Holm versus Kayla Harrison. Kayla Harrison probably going to squeak by, get 2 of the rounds in the wrestling department against Holly Holm, who likes to just sit there in the clinch and not really do too much. So probably the minus 200 for Harrison is correct there. I don't see any bonuses coming from this fight, so we'll move on. Calvin Kattar against Aljamain Sterling. I see this one going one way, and that's in the direction of Calvin Kattar. I think Sterling is going to struggle now that he's going to be evenly matched on the physicality side, which was really where he had an advantage, was at 135, coming in as an absolute beast. And when he had the cardio working for him, it worked to his advantage against Petr Yan, who was a much smaller fighter compared to Calvin Kattar. And that came to his advantage when he beat Corey Sandhagen, and he was the physically stronger guy and the longer guy and the better jiu-jitsu fighter. Whereas here, I think a lot of those great tools of Aljamain Sterling coming in as the bigger guy is going to be stopped by Calvin Kattar being just as big as Sterling is in this fight. And Calvin Kattar, you being able to use the volume boxing, whereas Aljamain Sterling is going to, that Calvin Kattar is going to be able to box him at range, and he's the sharper boxer. This is a tailor-made matchup here for Calvin Kattar to showcase and style on Aljamain Sterling, something that Calvin Kattar hasn't got to do for a while. But I think Kattar took the time off, and I think Kattar is going to come in for the victory. He's the favorite, 165, and the comeback on Aljamain Sterling at plus 120. Calvin Kattar is going to take this one to the bank, maybe even with a performance of the night bonus. That potential is there. Then you have Yuri Prochazka against Alexander Rakic. Prochazka is going to get this victory. I can't really see what's the storyline here for Rakic. Is Rakic going to beat Prochazka and now shoot up the ranks and go for it? And most likely not. Prochazka, he's only lost to the best. Who has beaten Yuri Prochazka so far in his UFC career? I think he's only lost to that one Alex Pereira matchup, right? I mean, he had that crazy wild war against Glover Teixeira, and before that, he knocked out Dominic Reyes viciously. He beat Ozdemir. He beat CB Holloway. And then that's all of his UFC fights. So it's only Ozdemir, Reyes, Teixeira in the UFC, and then the loss to Alex Pereira, where he was definitely a live dog, but Pereira was a little bit more technically sound. And he took some vicious shots from Pereira and lost that fight. So I see Prochazka being that top tier, where he's going to get the win against Rakic. He's going to flow a little bit better. He's going to show that his striking is better. Rakic can win if it goes the distance or if Prochazka really puts himself in harm's way, but Rakic isn't coming back with that devastating left hook like Pereira did. So I see Prochazka getting the victory here as the favorite, minus 185 with the 140 comeback on Rakic. This is a great fight for Prochazka in his wild style, going to reign supreme against the boring, more technical style of Rakic. Then you have Bo Nickel as the minus 1,400 favorite, the biggest favorite on the card, the biggest favorite probably on the last several cards. Bo Nickel going to get it done against Cody Brundage probably within a minute, if we had to be honest with ourselves, and a good chance of him where getting that bonus where people don't like that he's placed so high up on the card. I don't really mind it. I don't really care. I don't see how it really matters. This is UFC 300. Anyone who's on the card is really in a good position, and it doesn't matter if you're the first fight or the last fight. You're just got to be happy to be on 300. You've got to be happy that you have the opportunity to go out there and get 300K, and I think Bo Nickel knows that he can get the 300K if he just does regular, typical Bo Nickel stuff against Cody Brundage, and that's what's going to happen. And Nickel by first round submission has to be a great bet. Nickel by first round knockout has to be a great bet. You can hit on either of those, maybe place a bet on each of them and try to cash out and take whichever one hits. And he, especially with the 300K there, I don't see Brundage being able to do anything against Nickel in the striking or the wrestling. This is a great matchup, easy victory for Bo Nickel. Then you have Oliveira against Tsarukyan. And I think the odds are so spot on. It's minus 165. Tsarukyan is the favorite. Arman is going to most probably win the fight. He's more sound. He's on the way up. He's less risky. He has the wrestling to beat Charles. He's not going to allow Charles to get the submission. He's probably a tough, very, very tough guy to submit. And he probably has better, more crisp striking, where Charles Oliveira is more of a wild man. But Oliveira might get cracked trying to crack Tsarukyan. I see Arman getting this victory, and potentially, if he's able to do it like he did against Dariush, that would be a 300K bonus. So who's going to win these bonuses? So far, the possibilities I see is, I'm going to say Figueiredo and Garbrandt, neither of them are going to get the bonus. Bobby Green has a shot at it. Jalen Turner has a shot at it, maybe. So far, I would say Bobby Green. I would say Calvin Kattar has a good shot at it. Performance of the night. Prochazka has a good shot at it for knockout. Bo Nickel for sure has a good shot at it. Tsarukyan maybe. He won his last one by flying knee. And if he can get a dominant victory against Charles because of who he's facing, I think that makes his chances of getting the 300K bonus even greater, because when he wins, if he wins, it'll probably, if he does it any other way aside from decision, that really could bode well for him. Then we have everybody's favorite fight. It's a minus 105, minus 125, minus 105 on Gaethje, minus 125 on Holloway, almost even odds. Man, who's going to win this fight? Holloway said after he lost to Poirier again, when he tried to move up to 155 last time, he said, "This is just a bad cupcake." And the bad cupcake, I came up as a bad cupcake again. Sometimes it's good cupcake, sometimes it's bad. Typical Max Holloway random analysis right there, where it's just like, okay, I lost, I won, whatever. It's a bad cupcake. It's a good way of kind of looking at things. And if you got to eat the cupcake again, maybe it would be a good cupcake, even if he fought Poirier immediately in a rematch. Gaethje's power is going to be a problem because Max gets hit by everybody. His chin has held up against everyone at 145, but Gaethje can win a 5-round decision against Holloway. Is this a 5-round fight? Yeah, it is a 5-round fight. So Gaethje can win the decision because he can land the bigger shots against Holloway. If it's all a striking match on the feet, Gaethje could potentially do what he did against Tony Ferguson, whereas Holloway is going to have that volume approach. Is Justin Gaethje going to wane as the fight goes on? I don't think so. I don't see that really happening, especially because Max can land 5 punches and Gaethje can land that one shot and win each round. So ultimately, I see the underdog here, Justin Gaethje, based on the betting odds. Holloway is the slight favorite. I see Gaethje coming in and getting the victory against Holloway. As much as I'd love to see Holloway win it, I think this is just a fantastic matchup for Justin Gaethje. He has hard leg kicks, which can hurt Holloway. He has hard punches, which can hurt Holloway. And I think he can take some damage coming back from Holloway. Unless Holloway can absolutely exhaust him and get him out of there in rounds 4 and 5, I see this being a Justin Gaethje night, and I don't see Holloway getting him out of there. If Holloway did, it would be tremendous. Absolutely tremendous. It would be Holloway would soar to the highest approval rating he's ever seen from the fans in his UFC career. It would just be going up and up and up to the crescendo right now with him beating Justin Gaethje, but I don't see it happening. I see Gaethje getting the decision victory or probably the decision victory by winning 3 rounds with his superior power over Holloway, and maybe even getting a bonus because Justin Gaethje is going to go for it. Justin Gaethje, I would say, is probably the fighter on the card who's most likely in going for the bonus coming back to bite him, because Holloway is going to have the cardio edge. And if Gaethje really puts himself in harm's way by pouring out the gas tank in the first 2 rounds, you could see around 3 or 4 Holloway volume accumulation because Justin Gaethje fights stupidly. That is certainly in play. But ultimately, I'm going to side with Gaethje. But hey, I would love if Max Holloway won this fight. That would be super entertaining because it probably means that Gaethje is pouring out the gas tank, going for a finish when he should probably try to just use the same approach he used against Tony Ferguson and use the superior power against Max's volume, the same way he did in that fight against Tony Ferguson, and land the bigger shots and maybe try to end it in the 4th or 5th or win 3 of the 5 rounds and get the decision victory in a fan-favorite BMF matchup and keep that BMF title. It only bodes well for you to be that BMF and be known as the highlight and the BMF. It's really the perfect branding. He's really made for that title. Then you have Zhang Weili against Yan Xiaonan, who really cares. Probably Weili for the victory. Xiaonan, not really that great. Then you have Alex Pereira against Jamal Hill in that top matchup. Alex Pereira versus Jamal Hill. Pereira is going to be bringing the power. Ultimately, it's surprising, but it seems like Jamal Hill at the -125 is the favorite over the -105. Alex Pereira, very even odds, but Jamal Hill is the favorite, and I kind of agree. I think that Jamal Hill is a very realistic fighter. I think he knows exactly what he's stepping into, and he knows the power coming back from Pereira. He knows the flying knee from Pereira, and he knows the left hook from Pereira. And I think Jamal Hill is going to be very, very, very prepared. And Pereira can be hit, and Jamal Hill can land on Pereira. So ultimately, that's the way I see this fight going, is Jamal Hill at some point getting the better end of Alex Pereira, and either on the cards or in a knockout at some point. I could see it going either way in Jamal Hill's direction. Pereira certainly the live underdog, but I'm going to go with Jamal Hill to take it. So I think the bonuses are going to go to Jamal Hill. I think the bonuses are going to go to Tsarukyan, Bo Nickel, and Yuri Prochazka. I think those are going to be the 4 bonuses right there. They're all going to come from later on in the card rather than earlier in the card. I don't see Figueiredo getting it. I don't see ultimately Bobby Green getting it. He might try, but I think the 4 best candidates are Jamal Hill, Arman Tsarukyan, Bo Nickel, and Yuri Prochazka to go steal those 300K bonuses. This is the Straight Up Fight Network.